Did you get that picture clear yet, Peter? You got it clear. That's good. That's important, you know. You could end up in your own closet. Be interesting, wouldn't it? All right. Now, let's look at this. Let's look at the areas of your life that your paradigm has enormous influence over. And you do that every day. You do it all year. Wayne Dyer. I always figure if I could earn $1 million, anybody could earn $1 million. Put your name at the bottom. In most people, we're going to pick these up. Page 43. First of all, you're thinking of what you want. And I don't care what it is. If you know how to get it, you probably got the wrong goal. Okay? We're on page 43. You'll see at the top of page 43, the slide, what do you really want? Did you get that picture clear yet, Peter? You got it clear. That's good. It's important, you know. You could end up in your own closet. Be interesting, wouldn't it? All right. Now, let's look at this. Let's look at the areas of your life that your paradigm has enormous influence over. Your paradigm controls how you see your world. Do you know there's people who honestly believe it doesn't matter how hard they work, it doesn't matter how much help they get, nothing is going to be better than it is right now. It's just always been this way. It's been terrible. That's their world. That's where they live. Your perception is your point of view. Most people don't know that perception is a mental faculty, and you've got the ability to shift and change your perception. You can change how you look at anything. And it's a good idea if we change how we look at our own life. And let's start living the way we want to live. There is no such thing as you have to live this way. Your perception is controlled to an enormous degree by your paradigm. Everybody gets exactly the same amount of time. You get all there is. No one gets any more than anyone else. This is almost incredible as you really start playing with this mentally. Some just blanked out loser that's sleeping on a park bench somewhere has exactly the same amount of time as the most industrious individual in the world. It's what we do with our time that makes the difference, not how much we've got. There's two stock things that people use to stay stuck. They don't have the time, they don't have the money. I'll hear people say, I'd really like to do this, but I don't have the time and I don't have the money. You know something? They're going to spend the time and the money anyway. It's not a matter, can you afford it? You can afford anything you want. But you've got to make up your mind that you're going to do it. You're going to make up your mind you're going to make the most of your time. I remember having breakfast with Earl Nightingale one morning, and whenever I had the opportunity to be alone with him, I always had a well-prepared list of questions in my pocket. And we were going on a speaking engagement in downtown Chicago, and he said, do you want to meet for breakfast? Yeah, well, yeah, I'd love to. So we're sitting down having breakfast, and this is just as clear as if it was just this morning. I said, Earl, how did you learn to master time management? I can still hear his fork hit the plate. He dropped his fork. He said, what the hell are you talking about? He said, I've never mastered time management. He said, nobody masters time management. He said, time can't be managed. Think of all the time management programs there are. Time can't be managed. He said, you can only manage activity. He said, I carry in my pocket the things that I want to do. I write them down. I write them down at night before I go to bed. When I wake up in the morning, I do them. Now, if there's anything on there that doesn't get done, I'll just move it over onto tomorrow's sheet. You can't manage time. You can only manage activity. Well, you can waste a lot of your life if you're not managing your activity. A lot of the things you're doing don't even have to get done. I always say a lot of things you think you have to do, they'll get done through neglect. It's not important whether you do them or not anyway. So we all get the same amount of time. What are we going to do with it? Right? How about creativity? You'll hear people say, well, I'm not creative. Writers are creative, authors are creative. Everybody's creative. Everybody's creative. There's no such thing as a person, and there's no one that's any more creative than anybody else. Creativity comes from the use of the creative side of your personality. It's taking that beautiful power that flows to and through us and mold it into whatever you want. Let me see a show of hands. How many here would like to write a book? Let me see a show of hands. Hold up your hands. Stand up for a minute. If you really like to write a book, you've got this inside you, you'd like to write a book. Well, why the hell don't you write one? Okay, thank you. We got one of the best book writing coaches in the world, right here in this room. She's been hired. Now listen. She's been hired by Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson, Wayne Dyer, some of the top authors in this field hire her. I think she has something like 18 books in 30-some languages that she's written. Go to the top of the New York Times list. She's here in the room. All you people want to read a book. I'll bet none of you talk to her. You see? You got the desire to write, but you never made a decision to write the book. I was doing a talk show one time in a place called Barrie, Ontario. It's about 60 miles north of where I live. And it was early in the morning. It was a talk show, and this woman phoned in. It was a call-in show, and man, was she angry. She was so mad at me. She's, okay for you to talk like that. She's, I've got 3 kids at home. When I was going to college, all I wanted to do was write books. She's, I just can't go down south and write a book. I thought, woo, she is not a happy lady, I was going to say, well, who decided to have the kids, but I didn't think I'd stir it up. So I said, well, I know a lot of authors. I don't know any of them that went down south to write a book. Well, I said, there's one exception. I said, John Graham, when he was the creative director for Nightingale Conant, he took all of Earl's radio scripts and went to Bimini, and he turned it into a book, and it's called This Is Earl Nightingale, and it's a phenomenal book. It's out of print, but you can find one. It's a great book, and it's some of Earl's greatest radio scripts. But I said, outside of that, I don't know anybody that's done that. And I know a lot of authors. I said, listen, I'll give you a suggestion. Why don't you get up an hour ahead of the rest of the family? Make yourself a pot of coffee and write a page. Just one page. And you do that every day. You do it all year. You'd have 365 pages. And then the next year, edit those pages. Every year, every couple of years, you could have a book. And I thought, that's a damn good idea. You see? That's how Born Rich was written. Yeah. I wrote a whole thing by hand. And paper swells when you write. It swells. That file kept getting thicker. I left it in the back of a cab. I didn't have my name, my number, nothing on it. And I had just finished the book. Well, I said, how come it didn't bother you? You don't seem to be really upset about it. I said, it's so bad, it has to be really good. I said, the book probably wasn't any good. It's been published in many languages all over the world. Sold millions of copies. Okay? Everybody's got a book in them. Now let's keep thinking. You're a creative being. Creativity is the expression of the creator. You're an expression of the creator. You've got all this power. Okay? How about effectiveness? Some people are just so damn effective. We've got a staff like that. You met Mikey last night, very effective. Becca, very effective. The company's run by women. The president, the marketing director, the chief executive officer. It's all women run the company. Yeah, I know. And Arash and myself and Bill and Demo and we do what we're told. Right? We're good soldiers. Anyway, no, they're very effective people. They're just super effective. And you know, the president of our company and the marketing director, they had no business experience at all when they joined our company. None. They were both nannies, as a matter of fact. Hadn't gone to school for any length of time. And today, they're in very responsible positions because they got involved in something where you develop your creativity, you develop yourself, and they became super effective. And they just become more effective. When you're effective, you're generally pretty productive. You make things happen. But you know, all this is governed by your paradigm to an enormous degree. Now get this one. Logic. Man, that's just like a steel ceiling. And you see, people put up pretty, well, they say, that's just absolutely ridiculous. You couldn't do that. I've often wondered what the Wright brothers' neighbors were thinking. Two bicycle mechanics, and they're going to fly. The neighbors must have thought that they were out of their mind. Now, their father was a bishop in some Reformed church. He told them they were going to burn in hell for suggesting they could fly. And he was very serious about it. Interesting. I wonder what Edison's neighbors thought. Here he is in the basement doing all these crazy things. I could just hear him. You'd think that guy would get a job and go and do some work. His wife must drive him crazy. You know? They didn't let logic stop them. Do you know logic is such a beautiful stop? I mean, it's got so much prestige. It's totally illogical to think you could do that. My goodness, you don't have the education. You're not smart enough to do something. Are you crazy? Logic. It's illogical to think you could do that. You see, if I were you, Peter, I would get involved in an idea that was so illogical, and I'd want to make it happen not this year, next month. I don't know. You probably got a year plan or a 2-year plan, do you? Change it into weeks. Why not? What the hell? You know, you can think anything you want. Why fool around? You know, cut it down. Make it happen faster. The universe loves speed. If it's illogical, you know you're not going to do very much. It's got to be totally illogical. I mean, if it's logical, you mean you're not going to go very far. You're going to get rid of the logic. And here is the granddaddy of them all. Your paradigm controls your ability to earn money. Very first thing I ask a person when they come to work with us, what's the most you've ever earned in a year? If I'm looking at somebody, what's the most you've ever earned in a year? I don't really care what the answer is, but I want to know what the answer is. That's the first thing I ask Phil. What's the most you've earned in a year? That tells you where their paradigm is. See, money is a beautiful subject to deal with because you can measure it right to the penny. You can't measure happiness like that. You can't measure satisfaction like that. But money you can measure. It's measurable right to the penny. And it'll tell you where the person's paradigm is. And then they'll start to give you all kinds of reasons why. This is why. Well, I know why. You're programmed. That's all you're going to earn. Now, how would you turn your annual income to a monthly income? We're going to talk about that a little later on. I've done that many times. Turn your annual income to a monthly income. Now, I want you to think of what you're earning a year. See, you think of it. In fact, turn to a blank page in the book and write the number down. Write it down.
This is the incorporated as your business card. Yeah. Yeah. Good idea.
You got it written down, Sam? You're a little slow. Come on. Speed it up a little bit. Okay? Now, I want you to, you know what it is. You don't know what you've earned? No, in any year. The most you've earned in a year. See, you weren't listening, Sam. You got to listen. You got the number? Okay. I want you to think of how your life would change if every month you earned that. Instead of a quarter, take and divide it by 4 instead of a quarter, you're going to earn that every week. Every week. What would change? Everything. What comes to your mind first? You'd change your car. Okay. What would you drive? You drive a Lamborghini. Have you ever driven one? Well, how do you know you'd even like it? Wouldn't it be a good idea to go out and get one and drive it? When are you going to do that? We got a guy in the seminar here. He wanted a Ferrari Spider. Is that right? Is that there's a Spider? He went and he ordered it. He even dictated what kind of stitching he wanted in the upholstery. These things cost $500,000. And he got the perfect color that he wanted. And when he got it, first place he stopped and showed it to me, he and his wife. So I thought, no, it's a pretty car. I mean, it looks like a piece of art. He had to wait 2 years for them to build it. And he can't even sell it. They won't let him sell it for a year. That's some deal that Ferrari's got. I couldn't hardly believe that. He bought the car, he can't sell the damn thing, and he paid for it. You know? Well, wouldn't it make sense if you drove a Lamborghini? You don't know if you really like it or not. I was in one, I don't particularly like it. I like something that's very loose, you know. And I'm not a car guy, but what else would you change? Now, keep in mind, every week you get what you're earning in a quarter in your best year. When's the last time you thought of this? You've never thought of it, have you? Well, you'd have a hell of a time doing it then if you never think about it. Does it make sense? And you see, I'm singling you up, but I could do this with anybody in the room. They get the same answers because most people don't do that. They never sit and think, what would you change if you earned every week what you earn now in a quarter? You'd buy a house? Because you could buy a bunch of them if you wanted to. You know? What kind of a house? You haven't decided exactly. Are you looking at houses? You like looking a lot. You actually go with an agent, really go looking at houses? You don't do that. And yet you want to buy a house. Have you read the Born Rich book? You don't want to read it. There's a story in there about a couple who wanted to buy a house, but they didn't go looking at houses. They were in a house a couple months later. You can buy a house now. You really want to have a house? Where do you live now? And what? No, but whose house are you in? You rent a house? It's a long story. It's your grandma's house. It's not your house. It's your grandmother's house. Pardon? Nothing's free. You think it's rent-free. There is no free lunch. Don't kid yourself. Now, I want you to think. Your ability to earn money. Now look, it's almost like we are boxed in here. All those subjects have walls around them. And every time we go to change, we hit the wall. And we don't. Every time we go to change, we hit the wall. When you make up your mind you're going to change the paradigm, the walls come down. Nothing changes, but the walls come down. Just decide, I'm changing this. I am not going to live this way any longer. The second you decide that, the wall comes down. Now you go to move, you don't bounce back. But until you make that decision, those walls are there. I don't give a damn how hard you try. I don't care how smart you get. You're going to hit the wall. You run into trouble. You run into problems. And you get tired of it, so you give up. But when you understand, remember we said understanding was the key? What Solomon say? In all you're getting, get understanding. Think. The second you decide, the walls come down. Now, when you lock right into this, I want you just to imagine how your entire life will change as you begin improving any or all of these areas. If I told you the truth about my life, many of you wouldn't believe it. You say, I don't believe that. It was a disaster zone. It was absolutely terrible. But you know something? I made that decision. Now, I didn't understand what I was doing. I didn't know I was changing a paradigm. I didn't even know what a paradigm was. I thought it was 4 nickels or something. I had no idea. I really didn't. I'm effective in this business. I'm very effective. I know I'm very effective. I don't do anything else. This is all I do. So if you do it long enough, you're going to get effective. I know if I could change, anybody can change anything. I know that. So I don't wonder, can you get the house? You could go out this week and you could get yourself a house. And you don't need any money. God, I've seen all kinds of people. They get seller financing, nothing down. The rent goes against the deposit. I mean, you create the idea in your mind. And if an agent won't make the presentation and say, well, then get out of here, I'll get another agent. They're working for you. Now think. You really got to think. If you imagine, I'm going to tell you something, the change will be huge. It will be huge. And I'm going to tell you something else. The change is permanent. That's right. This is your life we're talking about. I want you to imagine if that's the only thing you worked on. I am going to change my perception of my ability to earn money. You get those two locked together. Or take this one. I'm going to change my use of time. Your ability to earn money will just go crazy. I honestly believe earning money is a game. It's just a game. And you play it as well as you can, and then you die. But as long as you're here, you're going to be playing the game. Now, most people don't even know the rules, and they wonder why, after 50 years, they still don't know how to score. You've got to learn how to earn money. It's something anybody can learn. School doesn't teach us. But if we really study this, if we make a commitment, I'm going to study this for the rest of my life. See, when I got the opportunity, we were having a sales meeting one morning, how this happened, and I was playing Earl's record. If people didn't listen to it, I would fire them. They had to listen to the record. Now, that was not the right way to do it, but I didn't know what the hell. I would do the only thing I knew. So, after playing the record one day, I said, man, I'd really like to meet him. A guy named Bob Carson was working in sales. He said, no, you wouldn't. I said, what the hell are you talking about? Of course I would. And I said, if you'd really like to meet him, Bob, you'd go and meet him. Oh, geez, he's right. Now, it's early in the morning. I was in Toronto. Toronto's now ahead of Chicago. They're on Central. Toronto's on Eastern time. So I found out the phone number. I phoned Nightingale Conan and asked to speak to Earl Nightingale. It was early in the morning. I think it was only about 7:30, something like that. And but somebody answered the phone. And they said, well, Earl's not in, but if you leave your number, I'm sure he'd be happy to call you back. So I left my number. Now, if you ever listen to Earl Nightingale's records, every one of them started out the same way. Hello, this is Earl Nightingale. Okay? So anyway, I got busy doing what I was doing, and sometime later, somebody else, hey, Bob, you're on the phone. And I pick up the phone. Hello, this is Earl Nightingale. Ooh, geez, my heart started to pound. I almost dropped. I saw him hyperventilating, and I didn't even have planned what I was going to say. And anyway, I got calmed down a bit, and I started to talk to him, and I said, I'd like to come down and have lunch with you. The guy's the most listened to man in the history of the broadcasting industry. Millions of people wanted to go and have lunch. He said, well, actually, Bob, he said, our executive group get together at noon, and we meet for lunch, and that's where we make our decisions. But if you'd like to come down, I'm sure somebody would meet with you. I thought, heck, that's not right. I don't want to meet somebody. I want to meet you. Now, by this time, I was certainly getting my composure a little bit. And I was thinking of what he's teaching. I said, wait a minute. I don't want to meet somebody, Earl. I want to meet you. I said, well, next Tuesday or Thursday would be better. And he started to laugh. He said, okay, come on down. Now, I spent an hour with them. They were at 333 North Michigan. I spent an hour with them. And at the end of the hour, I said, Earl, what's the big deal? You know, how's things? He says, there's no big deal. He says, simply a matter of deciding what you love to do and then dedicate your life to it. Problem is, most people, they don't even know what they love doing, let alone dedicate their life to it. I made up my mind, sitting in that chair, opposite him. I knew exactly what I'd love to do. I'd love to do what he was doing. And I made up my mind right there that that's what I was going to do. I would come back here, and I would be working with him. And that's exactly where I ended up. I ended up his vice president of sales. I became so successful in selling their stuff, they invited me into the head office. I had an office right beside he and Lloyd. And if Earl had somebody coming in to meet him, I had access to his calendar because I got to know Marilyn, his secretary. And she would tell me who's coming in. I'd brush up on that. When they stepped out of his office, I would step out of mine. And I'd introduce myself. And I met some of the most fascinating, interesting people in the world. Some of them became my friend. But the big deal was, I had no idea how I was going to do it, but I made up my mind sitting there. See, I was doing what Think and Grow Rich said then, and I just didn't understand what I was doing. I was making decisions fast to do things I had no idea how it was going to happen. Absolutely none. You don't have to know how it's going to happen. You only have to know it's going to happen. It will happen because I'm going to make it happen. Well, the second you start doing that, then you have to act like the person you want to become. You act like the person. You act like that person. You mentally, physically, you intellectually, you become that person. Everything starts, you're on that frequency, you'll start to attract whatever's on that frequency. And your whole world changes. Think, results. How do they happen? Do results just happen? I don't think so. I don't think so. They happen because of what's going on inside. Now, I want you to spend a few minutes at your table. I want you to take these cards, and I want you to look at it. Sam, what do you think you'd get out of Matrix? If you were there for a smaller group, with our whole team, all day, every day, 6 days. Really locked into showing people how to set up MSRs. Think you get much out of it? Oh, this isn't motivation. This is education. There's a big difference. A big, big difference. This is where you would really learn how you can do what I'm suggesting about the annual income, because we show people how to do that. We have all kinds of people. Were you here yesterday when they had the panel on? Do you know those two young ladies? They would earn circles around you. You know, and I don't even know what you're earning, but I know what they're earning. The one of them was a hairdresser, doing here at home, I think 20 or 25 a year would have been a very good year for her. I've seen her earn that in a bad week. I'm telling you. She and her husband are the ones that bought the spider. A lot of money floating around that place. But you know what preceded the money? The awareness of how to earn it. Anybody can do this. I want you to take a few minutes and talk about this. What do you think you'd get out of any one of these? Just forget the marketplace first. And just talk about this. Was it you that said, Jeff, yeah, you were one to be the entrepreneur. Yeah. This is interesting stuff. Did you agree that? You know? What's your name? Jermaine, you're pretty locked into what we're talking about here. Where are you from? New York. There's lots of entrepreneurs in New York. I love New York. The energy. Have you ever been to Tel Aviv? It's like you're in New York on a smaller scale. The energy is electric. It's phenomenal. Good thinking. Harry, did you meet Demo? Huh? You can speak. Let's go speak to him right now. Demo, I want you to meet Harry. Go on back and meet him. Okay? I want you to set up time to get together with him. I don't need that. Thanks, Peg. I was talking to Harry on the phone. He's from somewhere in England. I wanted to talk to Demo. He's a music producer. I said, geez, Demo's worked with Jay-Z, Madonna, Rihanna, all the top stars. Demo has. Interesting guy to talk to, isn't he? Yeah. You set up a time, Harry? Now, Harry, you've been here for 2 days and you hadn't done that. All right. Take a few minutes and discuss how you think you might benefit from any of the three, the two top or the matrix. The coaching, consulting, or the matrix. Okay? Jason. Where's Jason?